we go. Awesome. So there we go. 3, 2, and 1. Well, Mary Katie, welcome back. Mayor's Monday here at WSAU, WSAU.com. I feel like we should have different stuff to talk about because it's spring.
Yeah.
You know,
you want to talk about potholes, don't you?
We can. We probably should at some point.
We got a lot of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Teams out there with their asphalt trying their best.
I'm wanting to see some videos of you filling potholes. I know that's something you've done in the past, of course. Yeah. But yeah, why don't we just talk about that right away instead of, talking about water and things like that.
We'll talk about water too, because I know a lot more about that at this point.
Yeah, exactly. So where are we, I guess, on the whole pothole situation? Yeah. And that's my first question. My second question, do we have the fancy pothole heater device which heats around the pothole to help the patch last longer yet? Yeah.
So no, we don't have the we don't have the gadget yet. Okay. It is something that gets sent to me every winter. So I wish, just gotta dig around in the couch pennies to find the extra $1 million for that machine, right? But we don't have that. But the team has been out. You've probably seen them around, filling in potholes. It has been one heck of a winter. So every street I'm on, and I drive a Jeep, so it's extra bouncy. So, I wear a mouth guard when I'm driving, actually. Okay. So they're out. We're trying our best, but, it'll snow. We plow more potholes when it thaws. So we're on it. We've got some streets that are ready for reconstruction that we'll be working on all year once the snow is gone. So I wish I had something more other than we continue to be on it. If you have a really big one or one that's really irritating you, feel free to give our Public Works Department a call. We're taking notes.
Yes.
And we're trying to hit them all, although I've seen them kind of on the main streets recently. Man, Grand Avenue, I hit a couple. There's no way around them. You just slow down, I guess.
And I presume, though, that there is some sort of method behind that madness, though, to getting these filled, that you do want to hit the streets that are more frequently traveled first, whereas the pothole in the, cul-de-sac that only has about a half dozen houses around
it. The drill. You've heard it all before, I'm sure. Yeah, but, if you live in a cul-de-sac, if you got a pothole, they're out all over the place. So if they can hit, they might. So keep letting us know. We don't know where everyone is. So
yes, indeed. As many people as you do have in the Department of Public Works, they can't be on every street at every time. So
I wish they could be, but then we'd probably hear about that from them blocking traffic and moving slowly. So you just can't win sometimes. But the team is doing such a great job. They are all over it as much as they can be.
Sure. So if people need to report potholes, how do they do that?
If you want to just pick up your phone, we have Public Works. You can give them a call. If they end up calling City Hall, we can transfer you over to Public Works. But Public Works directly responsible for filling those potholes. So if you want to email me, I'll make sure they get it too. Bring on the deluge.
Indeed. And of course, as we get all that taken care of, then it's going to snow again.
Of course.
And,
this is how it happens.
We still probably have one good storm left in us before
you have that 20 inches in April in your head, don't you? Because that's what I have in my head.
Right.
I'm hoping maybe not. It's actually February was actually pretty calm. It was cold, but we didn't get a ton of snow.
So indeed, and that means as well. We have to move on to, I guess, talking about the weather.
Yeah,
we have
talk.
to move on to the water. Obviously, last week, Waterworks meeting, getting just updates on everything that we're dealing with right now. So first off, the update on PFAS is our resin is still holding up, but that's not going to be the case forever.
Right. Yep. So the resin, we're noticing some breakthrough now, which is what we anticipated, right? Because we're going to have to, we've been backwashing it is what they call it. So kind of like spraying it out and then putting it back. And so you'll see numbers kind of go up and down. There was a scatter graph, I think, that we presented. So you can kind of see what that looks like. And so we have been deciding, okay, are we okay going above 20 parts per trillion? And ultimately, the commission said, you know what, we're not. We want to start testing every month, starting in June, so that we know where we're at and that we can then send for replacement resin once we anticipate that to exceed 20 parts per trillion. So we expect that probably sometime in summer, maybe early fall. I wish it was not, $1 million to do all the replacement. But the community, what we've been hearing from folks is that they would like us to be below 20 parts per trillion, and we're kind of anticipating the EPA to announce their new standards. And we initially heard last year that they were talking parts per quadrillion. It sounds maybe like they've changed their thoughts on that a little bit to be more single digits parts per trillion. But that's still, non-detect levels we're talking about. So we want to make sure that we're all over it. We don't want to keep having to notify folks and, re-alarming people. But if you see a notification, it's probably because we've broken through. So we're working on our permanent solution. Mm-hmm. I know we were talking before we started filming about that. Where are we on that? And so it looks like we have a meeting scheduled. I think it's hot off my email. Okay. A joint finance committee meeting and the utility commission meeting to talk about interim financing. So we have some funding, grant sources, principal forgiveness, all kinds of things, but we just can't get the money fast enough. So we're going to have to talk about borrowing and what that looks like. And we put that in our rate case, so we anticipate that to be talked about soon too. There's a lot going on, and this is not cheap.
Yeah, indeed. And you brought up a lot of points there. The first one, if people do get that notification of breakthrough or another would it be a drinking water advisory?
Yeah, it would be just like the one that we had last time, although probably we wouldn't do the whole press conference again because the information remains the same. So you'll see it published on our website, on social media, in the newspaper. We're not there yet, so you won't see anything now.
So, but people, if they do get that, or I guess even if they're, just remain concerned now, they probably a good idea to still use that zero water pitcher.
Yeah, you can use that. Yep. I found it kind of convenient to just have on my counter, frankly, but, we just, it's all up to your level, right? This is exposure over time, which is different than another water topic that we had talked about before. We started filming with lead, right?
Indeed.
An actual neurotoxin that we worry about the effects on, especially developing brains.
Yes, and that's exactly it. If people are, saying that the lead service line talk maybe is coming up too much too fast, or this is something that they maybe don't know about because lead paint has been banned since a long time ago. What is the concern about lead in the drinking water system?
Yeah, so I would say lead has probably been more studied by our public health officials than PFAS, and there's a reason it's been banned. Yeah, so we worry about lead in water, in some of those old lead service lines. So if your house was built before, I think 1950 and 1960, you likely had been served by a lead service line, and you might still be. So, I'm looking at my house, it was built in 1915. So for sure, at least at one point, it was served by a lead service line. So I'll be looking to see if I need to replace things. We're looking at a whole plan. We're trying to map out where those lead service lines are. There are ways that you can take pictures to help us out. So we're still kind of coming up with what that plan looks like. We'd like to replace them, and we initially talked about 15 years. That's kind of our plan, and that's more aggressive than other cities who are talking still maybe 60 more years. So that's what we're talking about. Our governor has signed on to the acceleration program. And I think that's a lot of technical support and stuff that we've already started doing, but we of course will welcome more help and support, especially funding, because this is expensive. It'll be about $10,000 per line when it comes from the street to the house to the replacement of the meter. So we're trying to talk about all these things at the same time, but we mostly just want to make sure that kids aren't exposed to it. Adults shouldn't be exposed to lead either, but it's especially damaging for developing brains, especially babies.
Yeah, and that, as you said, you've got a lot of stuff up in the air right now with this, and I think that's probably where a lot of the confusion comes in for residents. They start hearing this talk and might think, oh, this is something I need to plan for in the next 5 years, or maybe this is something that will be forced on me this summer. Well, right now that's not the case because the plan for replacing all of these lines, some 8,000 or so, is still being formulated, and you still don't know what kind of funding will be available.
Right, yeah. And so we really do want to capitalize on any bipartisan infrastructure law funding we can get, any of the Inflation Reduction Act funding. You know, we are using some of the American Rescue Plan funding. We're using some of that just to get us out there. We use that to kind of map out what we know now. So we'll continue having the conversations. We don't have a mandatory ordinance yet, although that is something that's been talked about. Other municipalities have been successful in replacing everything by making it mandatory. So, you know, that's something we're talking about. We need feedback from people. We need to continue having that conversation. We need to understand how much it costs. Also, like, how much of Wausau can we tear up at the same time to replace things, right? Do we have enough plumbers to even attack that problem? You know, there's a lot that goes into making these decisions. I don't know if you remember when TDS was here, but they were working on a lot of parts of the city, and I got a lot of questions about that. Like, when is this going to be done? It's like, well, whenever they're done with their cables.
Yeah. So it's not like TDS can, you know, come in here and lay out the city in an entire summer. This is something different that we're talking about, right?
I mean, you know, maybe that is an option. You know, I've heard some people trying to pitch me on an idea that's similar to that. But, you know, again, we need to have the right people licensed working on this, making sure that we have the funding to do all of it.
Yeah, so the people that do need to be on, I guess, have this on their radar right now are those, you have 3 street projects coming up next year. It's going to be Henrietta, Grant, right around this neighborhood, and then 10th as well. Those people or residents will be getting notice that we are going to be tearing up the street, and while everything's torn up anyway, we'd like to help you replace your lead service line as well.
So that's we're working on a communications plan about what that looks like to kind of set the tone for how we'd like to see the rest of this program go, to remove all the lead pipes. So if you live in any of those areas, we'll be talking to you.
Yes.
If you don't speak English, we'll make sure that we have translation for you. We'll be communicating in a myriad of ways, but yeah, that is definitely on the docket.
And then that you might be able to use some ARPA funding for that. I know that's something that's going to be talked about at City Council this week.
Look at you looking at all of our items that are coming up. Good work.
Yes, so that is something that we'll be looking forward to hearing about tomorrow at City Council. And then another thing as well that goes into the PFAS, talking about who's responsible for all this. Obviously, we still don't know that yet, but that's something that in some cases, I'm sure a lot of people would like to know who is responsible for this.
So that is a question I get a lot. Like, why aren't we just forcing the polluters to pay for our new system? And of course, once those folks are identified, if they're identified, we will want to make sure that they pay for part of that remediation and cleanup, right? That is what we do. But at this point, we don't have our finger right now on who that is. And so we're working with the DNR, and you can expect a presentation from the DNR at our council meeting to kind of talk through what is a responsible party, what does that investigation look like, how long does this take, and you know, I'm also in contact with the Attorney General's office about, you know, questions about what does this lawsuit look like, because they've engaged in a statewide lawsuit against the manufacturers of PFAS. So I want to know, how does this play into that? You know, I've been approached by at least a half a dozen, probably more, law firms who want us to sign on to more class action type lawsuits. So the council might be interested in that. So, you know, we've got a lot of investigations still to do. And we also want to make sure that we're doing the right things for the city, that we're, you know, using our resources wisely, whether that is signing on to a class action lawsuit or whether it's, you know, working with the state on what they're doing. I don't know. There's a lot of unanswered questions, you know, as there will be with emerging contaminants.
Yeah, because if you can sign on to one of those class action lawsuits, that's great, but it might not mean a whole lot if you only get $50,000 out of it or something like that.
We will take that $50,000, but yeah, it is a challenge when you're talking about, you know, millions of dollars worth of cleanup and construction versus, you know, tens of thousands. It's a big difference, and it's a difference for our community and what they have to spend on things.
So what are we going to see then from the DNR? Because I'm sure you've probably been in conversations of, does this need to be investigated further, especially since there's no municipality in this area that hasn't been impacted by it at a certain level or another.
Yeah, so I would anticipate the DNR's giving us more of informational background education because, we're not to the point yet of being able to identify, at least I will be surprised if they told us they had something identified. But right now it's more about education. This is how the process is. These are the kinds of questions we're looking to answer. These are the documents we're looking at. This is what we do. So educational.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we look forward to seeing where all this goes over the next few weeks. I'm sure, again, water is going to be dominating the year.
Oh, yeah. Tell you what, I popped by the listening session that Representative Snyder and Representative Spiros were at just to let them know where I was putting my support in this budget. And I gave them, a short 4-page memo on PFAS background here. And I said, my one request is just see if you can fight for that funding to stay in there. It's not just Wausau, it's multiple municipalities. We're going to hear more from folks. All the municipalities who have drinking water facilities under 50,000 started testing this year. So we might be seeing some more notifications like we went through here.
Mm-hmm. And again, we're the ones that kind of first guy through the wall always gets a little bloody, right?
That's what it is, right? Are we the Kool-Aid man?
I'll take that.
Okay.
I'll take that.
We got it.
Indeed. Well, we always appreciate the time. We look forward to chatting again next month.
Thank you so much.